In 3, 2, 1. Okay, we are now live. So welcome to everybody who's just joined us. I'm Dan and I'm with Avi on the screen, and it's great to be with you here this morning or this afternoon, wherever you are in the world. We're
Good morning.
Live on YouTube as well. Good morning, Avi.
Good morning. Great to be here. Nothing better than a nice little Excel crash course, getting our hands dirty, getting stuck in. Very exciting. I see my good friend Hillel has joined. Thanks. I just sent out my link to some of my old school friends. So thanks for joining.
Great. Welcome, Hillel, and welcome to everybody else. There's already close to 50 people who have joined, and we had over 500 people register. So we're expecting a great crowd this morning. A lot of people, Avi, will be quite impressed and interested in your new setup there and your new background.
Yeah. I'm very proud of my guitar wall behind me. I think the last crash course we did, I was still squatting in the dining room with like a mirror behind me, maybe. So I'm very proud of and grateful for the fact that I've got a great space here and we can rock and roll in Excel today. What I might actually do, you'll see once we dive into Excel, we're going to really dive into Excel. You can see the guitar sneaking in there in the corner, but I'll wait till we actually go in. First things first, thanks for joining. And Dan has just posted something in the chat. So what we'd like you to do is let us know where in the world you are. If you want to, you can post your chat to all panelists and attendees so everyone can see your chat and we can engage with each other. So let us know, please, where in the world are you? Okay, we've got Cape Town, we've got Joburg.
Welcome, Amanda from Cape Town. We got Shaz in Centurion, Lindy in Joburg. Gavin Meltz, welcome to you. You're in Joburg as well. Gabriel is in Joburg. Daph is in Cape Town. Kaylin Lee also in Cape Town. Quite a few Cape Townians in the webinar. Hope the weather's warmed up. Apparently it has. Roy Felipe, welcome to you from Linksfield. Okay, Lisa Shevitz says she loves the hat. Avi, I'm actually looking on YouTube because we've got a few people tuning in live on YouTube as well. So she says she had withdrawal symptoms, so she's back listening to her favorite two guys. Love your courses. I know she's busy with Excel 101 and 202, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, we're going to launch a poll soon just to understand you guys a bit better, who you are, if any of you have done one or more of our Excel courses online. It's great to have everyone here. Thanks, Murray, for joining.
Vanessa in Joburg, Fakila in Soweto. Sorry to interrupt you, Avi. Teresa in Joburg. Lionel also in Joburg. We've got Sindiswa in Randburg. Murray's in Joburg. What's the hurry, Murray? And Masenya is happy to see you guys again. Sandy Cock is in Joburg. Lovely weather here today, absolutely. We got Ramana from Centurion. Poonam in Joburg. Okay, so Gabriel Maletsky is asking for the YouTube link, so I will do that.
Too slow. Already posted it there in the chat. You're welcome to share that with anyone that can't join Zoom. Zoom, unfortunately, has a bit of a bad reputation, but we believe quite firmly that it's unfounded overall. But let's not get into that. We are massive Zoom fans, and we're very grateful to have been using Zoom for a couple of years now already. Today we're zooming into Excel.
Absolutely. So welcome to everyone who has just joined, and you'll see on my camera here, we will be starting in about 2.5 minutes time. We're going to start promptly at 11 o'clock. You might be watching the recording of this as well. And either way, we are grateful that you have joined us this morning. And we are excited to deep dive into pivot tables. Okay. We're going to start with some polls in a couple of minutes time. Once everyone has joined, those numbers are going up. We've got almost 100 people with us. So welcome, welcome, welcome. If you have just joined us, pop us a message in the chat. Let us know who you are and where you're joining from. Okay, welcome. Uri is joining from London. Okay, so it's almost 10 o'clock in the morning there. Still summer there. I hope the weather's decent. I think it was a bit cold earlier this week. Okay, Kobus says, Goeiemorgen from Brakpan. Welcome to you, Kobus. Okay, Avi, thanks for posting the link there. We got Dovbe Unterslak. The last few were awesome. Thanks for this. Great stuff. Thank you.
It's always great to see some familiar names. I think we've got our tribe, some people that religiously will join all of our crash courses. Max Mosselson, thanks for joining. Recognize your name.
Oh, wow. Kenneth from Sweden.
Wow.
And we've got Brent Rubin. Brent is in Santon Woodmead side. And we got Dishon from Kenya. Welcome to you. Great to have you with us. Probably just before 12 o'clock there, I think.
And we got Patrick Palmer. We can't forget Patrick. Nice to see your name.
Great to have you with us, Patrick. Patrick has been one of the most loyal and reliable webinar subscribers throughout this lockdown period. So great to have you with us. I need to keep an eye on this clock. We're going to be going live. Welcome to those who have just joined us. We're going to be going live in just under a minute. And we got Clive as well, joining from Ranana. Great to have you with us. Welcome, Ellie. Welcome, Tessa from Cape Town.
I see Tanya Reeves. Thanks for joining. Another name that I recognize. I've seen your posts on LinkedIn. Looks like you're doing great stuff. Awesome. We've obviously got Tracy and Laurie from ORT, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Once we officially launch at 11 sharp or 11 a.m. our time.
And there we go. The clock has just struck 11 o'clock on this Wednesday morning. So from me, Dan Stillerman, founder of Excel Academy, a very, very warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for joining. I'm joined on the screen by my colleague and partner in crime, Avi. So welcome to Avi as well. Welcome to the 130 odd people who have joined us. We are very, very excited to deep dive into pivot tables. This, I think, is the first time we're doing a specifically pivot table focused masterclass. You might have attended some of our free training during this lockdown period. I think we're on day number 153, if my counting serves me correctly. We've done a number of free crash courses. It's always fun. It's always, we always make them as engaging and interactive and informative as possible and practical so that you can actually start to apply these skills into your day-to-day work and really use and implement these skills to ramp up your proficiency, your efficiency and confidence when it comes to Excel. So we're very excited to be with you, and we've got a fantastic crash course lined up. We actually want to ask some poll questions, because we always start off our face-to-face trainings, which we haven't done for a while because of COVID, but before COVID, we would always ask a number of questions just to really get to know our audience. So we're going to start off with those questions. And in the meantime, we are aware that the numbers are still going up. So many people are just joining us. So welcome to those of you who have just entered the webinar. You can pop us a message in the chat. Let us know who you are and where you are in the world right now. We do have people from Kenya, from all over South Africa, from London, from Israel, from even Sweden. So it's fantastic to have such a diverse audience. And we would like to know, have you actually done any of our other free Excel crash courses during lockdown? So I'm going to launch that now. If you're watching on YouTube, unfortunately, you won't see the poll come up. If you are watching the recording, you also won't see the poll come up. So only if you're watching live on Zoom, you can answer that. We'll leave that up for about 20 to 30 seconds. And it will be really good to know if you have attended all of our crash courses, most of them, maybe one or two, or none at all. Okay, so get your votes in. I see 75% of people have voted. Leave it up for a couple seconds, and we are going to end it in 2 seconds. So thanks for your votes. Okay, great. So the majority of you, 36% of you, have actually attended none of our free crash courses. 34% have attended one or two, and 24% have attended most of them. We're actually going to ask you one or two other questions now, just as we get to know you. Have you ever used a pivot table before? Okay, that will be very interesting, just to get to know whether you've worked in pivots before. I see a lot of people are saying never.
Well, so quite a varied field. Just a varied number of people or varied experience. So it's important for us to keep that in mind. And yeah, we can see that we got 16% of people use pivots all the time, 20% from time to time, 28% have dabbled and tried it once or twice, and 36% have never, ever tried it. So we're going to do our best to make sure we cater to everyone. So those that use pivots all the time, hopefully we'll show you 1 or 2 additional tricks or shortcuts or tips from time to time. Hopefully, I'm confident will add value. If you've tried it once or twice, hopefully we're going to demystify it and take away some of the fear you may have. And if you've never used it, then you're definitely going to love it and enjoy it. So thanks, Dan, for the poll. We're 3 minutes in.
I think let's ask another quick poll. This will be about 20 seconds. Are you using a Windows computer most of the time when working on Excel, or an Apple Mac? Usually it's like 90-10. That's the split that we often find. And it looks like that might be following the same trend over here. We'll leave it up for another 5 seconds. So just get your votes in. We'd love to know Windows or Apple Mac. And a reminder that if you're watching on YouTube or you're watching the recording, you unfortunately cannot vote. So there's the result. Overwhelming majority using a Windows PC. And while we're in this mode, are you going to be watching and doing this crash course? Because this is very important for us to know. Are you going to be working along with us and getting your hands dirty and deep diving as we go? Because then we're going to have to be aware of that. Or are you just going to be more watching and maybe doing the work later and just watching for now? So get your votes in the next couple of seconds. Thank you to everybody who's voted. And let's end that and share the results. Okay, so we do see that looks like almost an even split between watching and doing, and watching only and doing later. So that is fantastic. And that's all the polls for now. We've got a few more for later, but it really would be remiss of us to not give a big shout out and appreciation to ORT for initiating this whole crash course and for partnering with us and for giving us the opportunity to partner with the team at ORT. They do fantastic work in supporting small businesses during lockdown, during COVID, and obviously pre-lockdown and beyond, really being a pillar of strength and support to small businesses here in Johannesburg and beyond. So a massive shout out to Tracy, Laurie, Helene, and the team. Thank you for partnering with us and for giving us this platform and for marketing this particular crash course to your database. We really appreciate it a lot. And we'll talk more about what they do and how you can potentially support ORT if you want to a little bit later in this crash course, but it is 11:05. So let's dive into Excel. Now, because this is a very practical crash course, we would like you to download the Excel spreadsheet, which I'm going to post in the chat now. So for the Excel downloads, to download the spreadsheet and the cheat sheets, please click on that link. Okay, so please click on that link in the chat. You'll see it's excelacademyinc.com/pivots26 August. Much easier to click on it than to type it up. If you are watching on YouTube, I'll paste the link into YouTube as well. So let's get that done. And I'll give you about a minute to download the spreadsheet. It will be a spreadsheet as well as 2 cheat sheets, one for Windows and one for Mac. I know about 93% of people watching today are actually watching and using Excel mostly on a Windows computer. So then the Windows shortcut cheat sheet will be appropriate to you, but either way, you'll get both. So please make sure you download that and follow along with us. Okay, I'm posting it on YouTube as well, the link. Give you about half a minute to get that downloaded and to open up the spreadsheet. I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to share my screen just to show you what it will look like when you do go to that particular link. Okay, so cool. excelacademyinc.com, pivots 26 August. I can press F11 to go into full screen mode. This is what that web page looks like. Okay, and I'm going to click download my Excel file and cheat sheets. Okay. And there we go. So it's a zipped folder. I'm going to open it up over there and you'll see crash course data. It's an Excel file. And then you've got 2 PDF documents, which are cheat sheets. Okay. Cool. So I'm going to open up the spreadsheet and it's opening up on my other computer screen. So let's get it onto that second screen over there.
Dan, do you want me to also open it so we can have the Excel file mainly on my screen?
Absolutely, Avi. So I'm actually going to ask you to please open it and to share your screen. And often what we say is the very first thing to do when you do open up a spreadsheet is what, Avi?
Good question. So you may want to keep a backup of this raw data, because if we just continue working with this data and we save it, we don't have a backup of the original data. I mean, we might, based on being able to download it again, but it is quite important, and we're big believers in pressing F12. So if you press F12, now, by the way, that might not work on yours. You might have to press Fn and F12. And if all else fails, just click on File and Save As. Okay, because F12 allows you to save as. I'm already in this folder over here, and I'm just going to put my initials at the end of this file name. So that is step number one when you're looking at a spreadsheet you've never seen before, to save as. Press Enter, and now you can see the name has changed. Step two, when you are looking at data that you've never seen before, is to not get too complicated and advanced and start analyzing and manipulating. Quite simply, step two is just to look at the data. What type of data are you dealing with? Can you actually see it all clearly? So we can't. So what we're going to do, we'll use the mouse. In this case, this will work on a Mac or a PC, a Windows. We're going to click in between the column A heading and the row 1 heading over there, in between. So that selects all the data. We're going to double click in between A and B, but the mouse has to look like, if you've done Excel 101, you know that's called the unwinder. So we're going to double click there. Okay, and then that will auto fit all of the column widths. Okay, so now we can see what we've got. So we've got full names. Okay, we've removed the email addresses, so there's no emails. There's progress, there's a workshop. So now you might start noticing and realizing that this is a progress report for our online Excel workshops. Okay, so we've got people's names, their progress, which we're going to see very soon as a percentage, workshop name, sign-in count, how many times a person has signed in. If you have worked in Excel a little bit, you might know, and you might have, some of you might have seen, I've recently put 1 or 2 videos on LinkedIn about dealing with dates in Excel, that this is actually a date. And this is a date. E and G, it's a date, it's a serial code number. We're going to convert it into a date. And then we've got SAST, stands for South African Standard Time, which is a time. So that's the data we've saved as. The final thing I want to do, I think it's quite important just to be in control and manage your data nicely, is to label your sheets. Okay, so this is sheet 1, and it doesn't really give us much of an insight into what's going on in sheet 1. So we're going to double click on sheet 1 with the mouse. Okay, and we're just going to say data, and then I'll press enter. So we've renamed the sheet, we've saved as, we've auto fitted the column widths, we've looked at the data. Now what we're going to do, if you've done any of our crash courses before, you'll know that we're big believers in working in table mode. So Dan, any idea what the shortcut is? It's quite easy to remember. The shortcut to convert into table mode is Control
T, Avi. T stands for table, and
right, so
yeah.
Easy to remember, and it should work on Mac and on Windows. So all you need to do is stand anywhere in the data. If you're outside the data, it's not going to work. You need to be inside the data. I'm going to zoom in a little bit to make it a little bit clearer. So I'm standing anywhere in the data. It doesn't matter if I'm there or there or there or there or there. As long as I'm in, I'm then going to press Control and T at the same time. Excel picks up that my table has headers. It picks up where the data is. So I don't actually need to do anything unless this button is not ticked. If on yours it's not ticked, please tick that your table has headers and then click on OK. So pretty straightforward. We stood in the data, we press Control T, that is it. Now we've converted to table mode. What we're going to do, one last thing before we go into pivot tables, which is the real topic that we're discussing and looking at today, we just want to quickly format this data. You can see that it looks quite pretty. If I go up to the table design tab, yours might just say design. You'll notice that there are some options here to change the styles. So that's quite cool. It looks nice when you're in table mode, but the actual data is not yet formatted. So what we're going to do, we're going to format the progress, we're going to format the last activity, and we're going to format the time. Okay. We are going to use some keyboard shortcuts. So follow along with me. I'm going to go through them nice and slowly. I know that Dan, I can see what's going on in Dan's mind. I can read his mind. He's going to be posting the shortcuts in the chat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand anywhere in the progress column, anywhere in column B. Okay, it doesn't matter where I am, as long as I'm in column B, I'm going to say Control and Spacebar at the same time. That was Control and Spacebar. Then what I'm going to do, and this is on the cheat sheet, which we gave you for free to download. If I press Control, Shift, and 5, not the 5 on the right-hand side of your keyboard, that won't work. It needs to be the number 5 on the top of your keyboard, because that shares the button with the percentage symbol. So when I press Control, Shift, and 5, that converted the selected data into a percentage. Fantastic. Moving on to the last activity, which is a date. I'm going to follow again with the same shortcut. I'm going to stand anywhere in column E, doesn't matter where I am. I'm then going to press Control and Spacebar again. And this time, I'm going to say Control, Shift, and 3. Okay. If for whatever reason, your hash symbol, which looks like that, if the hash or the pound key is not on the number 3 on your keyboard, it's very unlikely, but if you're in Europe or you're somewhere outside of South Africa where our hashtag is on top of the number 3, yours might be next to the enter button, then you just press Control and the hash, the pound key, that converts to a date. Most of you, I'm sure you can just press Control, Shift, and 3. That will convert to a date. I'm going to do the same with column G, where I press Control, Spacebar, then Control, Shift, and 3. That now converts to a date. The last one to do, and by the way, this webinar is being recorded. You're welcome to watch the recording. I'm going to stand anywhere in column F. I'm going to press Control, Spacebar, and the shortcut to convert to a time format is Control, Shift, and 2. Again, not the 2 on the right-hand side of your keyboard. If you've got a big keyboard, it's the 2 on top, which has the @ symbol on top of the number 2. So to recap what the shortcuts were, for percentage, Control, Shift, 5. For date, Control, Shift, 3. For time, Control, Shift, and the @ symbol. So Control, Shift, and 2. Okay, that's all we're doing now in terms of the data. One other tip that I want to give you. It's quite important as we now move into the actual pivot table that you need to make sure, just be confident that your data is tidy. Now, in our Excel 202 workshop, we'll tell you about this right at the end. We've got a whole section where we show you how to tidy up your data, because what we're going to do, and this is going to be giving us a bit of an insight into what a pivot table is. A pivot table will take this big data set and it will summarize it into a dashboard. The analogy that we often use is if you're driving a car, you don't always need to know what's going on underneath the hood or the bonnet in South Africa. You don't always need to know that. It helps, and sometimes you might want to know what's going on underneath the bonnet, the hood, but most often you just want to look at the dashboard in your car. So your key metrics, and that's what a pivot table is. It's going to summarize this big database so we can look for insights, look for anomalies, look for trends, so we can make better business decisions. So if you have a faulty engine, okay, that might show up on your dashboard, okay? So it's just important that you make sure, in this case, in Excel, that your data is tidy. We're not going to be spending time tidying up, because in this case, we've made sure the data is tidy, okay? But very often your data will be a little bit messy. You need to just keep that in mind, okay? Whatever you put into the pivot table, if it's messy and not tidy, that's what's going to come out on the other side. So that's a tip. But without further delay, let's go into our first pivot table in this session. So all we need to do, again, it's quite simple. We need to make sure we're standing anywhere in the data. By the way, you don't have to be in table mode to get into a pivot table. It can just be a normal data set. What you do have to have, this is very important, guys, you have to have headers. Okay, so it doesn't have to be in a table mode. We could have left the data like what it was at the start without the table and the banded rows and the color, but you have to have column headings in order to convert to a pivot table. So we stand anywhere in the data. Now there's two ways in this case to convert to a pivot table. We're just going to show you one way. Okay. You can use the magic Alt key. If you've done our Excel 101, you'll know that the magic Alt key, this doesn't work on a Macintosh, unfortunately. Apologies. You'll have to do the mouse method. The Alt key, if I press Alt once, by the way, if you look on my computer, it might look a bit confusing. I hide my ribbon. You can see this is the ribbon at the top here. I normally hide it so that I only see it when I click on one of the tabs. Okay. That's my setting, just so you know, hope you don't get too confused. I can maybe bring it back just so it looks more familiar to everyone, so you're not too disorientated. So standing anywhere in the data, I'm going up to the insert tab. This is the mouse method, and then I could click on the pivot table button here. Standing the data, insert tab, click on pivot table. If you want to be lazy and you want to use the keyboard shortcut method, that will be Alt. You can see that it adds these hotkeys on the ribbon. I'm then going to press N. That takes me into the insert tab. And you guys can see over here, there's the letter V. I'm going to press V to insert a pivot table. So if you want to be fancy and you want to be quick and you want to really get it done fast, you press Alt, then N, then V. You don't need to make any changes here, guys. We're not going to change any of these settings. So don't worry about this for now. All you do simply is press OK. Fantastic. Okay, so what we've done, we have now inserted, or we almost at the point where we are building our first pivot table. So what we've done, you can see, in case you're confused, you might think, what has happened? I was looking at this, and now all of a sudden I'm looking at this. All that Excel did, guys, is it inserted a new sheet. Okay, I've explained this in previous crash courses. The way to understand what a sheet and a workbook is in Excel, the workbook is the book, the overall document like this, it's a book, and inside the book you've got many sheets. Okay, so now we've inserted a new sheet. I'm going to double click on sheet 1 and I'm going to call it pivot table, like that. I'm going to press enter just so that I know that at the bottom I've got my data, which is the engine in the example of a car, and the pivot table is going to be the dashboard. Guys, the first time I tried to build a pivot table, I was overwhelmed, I was confused, I was scared, it looked quite complicated. But an important lesson I learned with Excel over the years is that it's not as scary, as intimidating as we think it is. It's just because it's something new, anything that's new can come across as a bit intimidating or overwhelming. But when we take a deep breath and we relax, and we just have a look at what Excel is telling us, Excel is actually designed in a way to be quite user-friendly. Okay, so what you can see on the left-hand side of my screen, this is the pivot table placeholder. Okay, this is really just giving me an instruction into what to do. So it says, let's read, to build a report, choose fields. Okay, these are the fields, we're going to get to these now, from the pivot table field list. So what this is doing, this is where the pivot table is going to be placed. But for now, it's just telling me where to start. So you can see it's got kind of those row headings and the column headings over there. And it's showing me, can you see here, guys, where my mouse is? Let me try something here. If I bring up my floating controls, where did they go? There we go. I haven't done this in a while, but let me just annotate over here with a little box. What you can see over here, this is the same as this. Can you guys see? So it's just giving me an example that I need to go and tick one of these boxes. Okay, I'm going to clear my drawings over here. So what I'm going to start off with, I'm just going to get rid of my annotations. Dan, what do you think we should start off with? What's a good place to start?
So, good question, Avi. I would say it's probably, I mean, this is our data, so it's quite practical and realistic for us to be looking at this data, because this is actually an export of the progress data on our training workshops, on our Excel workshops. So for us, excuse me, a huge priority for us is to track the delegates' progress. So to track their progress as they're progressing through different workshops. So one thing that we might like to see as a dashboard item when we're driving our Excel car is, what is the progress on Excel 101 or 202 or 303? And how does that vary? Then we can start to dive deeper and to say, has that changed over time from year to year to year, or from month to month to month? So, but I think as a step one, we can analyze the progress on the training workshops according to the different workshop names.
Great. While I do that, Dan, I can cancel the spotlight. One or two people posted a Q&A I was looking at. So I think someone is looking for the data. If you can help them there, please, unless you already have. So what we're going to do, as Dan said, we're going to try and get an insight into a summary of the progress on the workshops. Because if I go to my data here, guys, can you see there's just so much data? If I jump down, many of you might know this shortcut. I'm going to hold Control and press the down arrow. I jump to the bottom. You can see I've got more than 7,000 rows in this data. So it's not so easy to know what's going on. What's the average? Which workshop is doing the best? We're also going to look at dates. So great way to start, Dan. We're going to start off with looking at the progress of the workshops. So let's just try, let's play around. Let's assume even I've never done a pivot table before. I'm going to follow the instruction. It says choose field. So I'm going to choose a field. I'm just going to tick a box like it says. So try this. I'm going to click on workshop. Okay, so you can see it did something. What it's done, it got rid of that placeholder. Now it's actually inserted a pivot table. And what it's done is it's taken all the unique items in the workshop column. So if I go back to my data, you'll see that there's lots of data over here. So now when I go to pivot table, it's showing me that there are only 3 unique items in that column. So there's 3 workshops, Excel 101, Excel 202, Excel 303. Okay, so already we have some insight. It's very simple, but that's already some insight into the data. So when you do this with your data, it will automatically show you all the unique items in that field. The field is the column heading, same word, field, column heading, same thing. Now what we're going to do, we're going to go to the progress. So we can just click on the word progress like I did with workshop. You'll see that it automatically puts it into the values area. Okay, earlier you saw that workshop went into the rows area, but what I will show you guys, if I untick progress, it removes it, and you can actually click and drag. So look what I'm doing. I'm clicking on progress and I'm dragging it into values. Okay, values means it's a number. So you agree that progress, it's a percentage, it's a number. It makes sense that that should go into the values area. Now, let me ask you a question. Dan, if I was a new employee and I came to you and I said, Dan, here, look at my report. What would you say?
I'd say, what is this? 3,376, 1,816 doesn't mean much.
Okay, so, and I'm sure you guys will then agree, when you're dealing with percentages, it makes no sense to add them up. Dan's the actuary. I'm sure you'll tell us. You don't need to be an actuary to know that, hopefully. You don't add up percentages. What you rather would want to do, in this case, is look at an average. Okay, so how are we going to do that? There's a few ways to do that. You can either click on this little arrow over here, then click on value field settings. Recently, Dan taught me something I didn't know. You can actually click on sum of progress. You can double click. So you can see here, guys, where it says sum of progress. If you double click, it takes you to the same place. Okay, don't double click in the data. We're going to get there. We're not ready for that yet. That will do something else. If you accidentally did it, it's fine. But just come back to the pivot table, double click on sum of progress. And what we're going to do, we're not going to change the name just yet, but you can change the name. But just make sure that your custom name over here is not the same as your source name. Can't have that. In Excel, you can't have 2 of the same names. Okay, if you've done Excel 101 and learned a bit about names, you'll know that. So what I'm now going to do, guys, I'm going to go to Summarize Values bar. I'm going to click on Average, and I'm going to click on OK. Now, what it's done is it's giving me an average. So that looks a little bit better. We're getting somewhere. Okay. But what we can now again see is that it's not formatted very well. Okay. So what we can do, we could select all of these and format them, but all we're really doing then, we're formatting from B4 to B7. So if the pivot table expands, this is not really an ideal way to format values in a pivot table. What we rather want to do is we want to double click again on average of progress. You might have seen this in the bottom left-hand corner. You click on number format, and then we're going to click on percentage. Make sense? I'll start again. We double click on average of progress. That takes us to value field settings. We've already changed to average. Now we're going to click on number format. We're going to click on percentage. We're going to then click on OK, and then click on OK again. And now we're finally seeing something that looks a little bit better. By the way, let me ask Dan this question as the qualified actuary. What if I went and I said equals to this times by 100? Some people like to do that when dealing with percentages. Okay, I'm going to get back to what it looked like. Could I do that, and is that a good idea, to times that by 100?
Yeah, so I think we were trained to do that on our calculators in school.
Yeah.
I know I was. to get something, a percentage, you say the one number divided by the other, multiply by 100, and there you get your percentage. So in Excel, that's a very bad habit to be in for multiple reasons. But the one reason being that it's just so quick and simple to convert it into percentage format. And then when you use that, because a percentage, 82.81%, is the same number as 0.8281. It's not 82.81 as a number. It's 82.81 out of 100. So stick to the percentage format. We did show you earlier today, Control-Shift-5 or Control-Shift% is a way to convert to percentage. But as Avi showed you here, when it comes to a pivot table, it is best to convert the number format to percentage using that, what is it called? You double clicked on average of progress and you went into value field settings. That's it.
Cool. Right. So the next thing I want to talk about, what you'll notice, guys, when it comes to pivot tables and you're working with your data now, you want to use this, you want to be practical. There's never going to be an exact right or wrong way of doing it, because, you know, you're pivoting. I mean, when this word's been used quite a lot over this lockdown and pandemic period, pivoting means to move and to kind of look at it from different angles. You need to be flexible and you need to play around with it. So for example, what I'll show you here, what if we pivot and we take workshop? You look over here on my screen, I'm going to move workshop from rows area into columns area. Okay. You can see it still kind of works, but it doesn't look as nice. So you'll notice that we're going to move it back. So you need to have that element of flexibility and realizing there's not going to be an exact right or wrong way of building a pivot table. There's multiple ways to do it and multiple ways to look at the data from different angles. That's quite important. Just, I guess, also to understand what the word pivot means. The next thing I want us to look at, and it's quite an important topic when working in pivot tables, and it can be a big point of frustration, and that is working with dates in a pivot table. Okay, I know in my last job, I often used to really struggle with working with dates, and there's all kinds of workarounds that I did. I later on realized that there's much better and more efficient ways of dealing with dates in a pivot table. Okay, so what I'm going to do, let's just try straight away. Let's take, you guys remember, either last activity or member since. Let's take member since, this field over here, and I'm going to drag it into the columns area. Okay, so I've dragged it into the columns area. Now you can see Excel has kind of made up a few things on its own. So first of all, if yours looks different to mine, be patient. I'm going to show you what mine might have looked like in a minute. Okay, so yours might look like a big mess. Okay, well, I'll get to that if yours does look like that. If yours looks like mine, what you'll notice is that Excel's automatically grouped the dates. Okay, because what you'll see when we go to the data, these are just a whole series of individual dates. You see as I scroll down here. So what Excel has done in my case, and it might have done it in your case, but the point is that it might not always do this. And we want to give you the control to know how to group or ungroup dates. Okay, so what we're going to do is just talk about what has Excel done here. So in my case, and it might be the same in yours, it's grouped it into years and quarters. Can you see on my screen here? It's added these fields in here to the fields list. You can see there's now quarters and years and then the original date. So you'll see on my screen, if I click on 2016, I've got Q4, and if I click again, it's got the months. So you can see that it's already kind of grouped it for me. Okay, so that's useful to know. Yours may have automatically grouped, but I want to now show you and give you the control and the confidence to group or ungroup on your own. So how do we do this? One or two important things just to point out. We often are quite preemptive at Excel Academy because we've done this for a couple of years now. You might be wondering, where's that thing on the right-hand side of my screen? Dan, I can't see it. It's gone away. That thing with the boxes, the field areas, and where's it all gone? Okay, all that's happened is that you're not in your pivot table anymore, so you don't have all those options that relate to pivot table. So what I need to do, you can see, guys, my selection is here. If I click inside the pivot table, then the pivot table's field list comes back. That's very, very important. Okay. Another thing, the next thing I'm going to be looking at over here, if you look on my ribbon, guys, the Analyze and Design tab, again, you're only going to see that if you're in the pivot table. Okay. So if I'm outside, I don't see it. You can ignore Power Pivot. That's got nothing to do with what we're doing today. You can ignore that. When I go into the pivot table, only then do I see the Analyze and the Design tab. Okay. So what we want to do, we click inside the pivot table. We're going to come to formatting in the next couple of minutes. I want to go to the Analyze tab. And on the Analyze tab, what I want to do is I want to ungroup my dates. But what you'll notice, the ungroup button over here in the group, okay, in the group, it's grayed out because I first need to go and select one of these date headings. Okay, so I'm going to click on 2016. And now when I go up to the Analyze tab, I can click on Ungroup in the group. Okay, so now I've ungrouped, and yours may have looked like this at the start. I'm sure you will agree, this is not a summary. It doesn't help us. You might want this, but I think it's highly unlikely you'd want, like, I mean, if you look here, if I press Control on the right arrow, I've gone to column VZ. I mean, that's just, I don't know offhand what that is, but it's a lot. It's a couple of hundred, maybe even. It's just many, many dates, and it's way too big and bulky and clunky to be a summary and a dashboard. So if you want to summarize with dates, what you need to do, so now we're at the point where it's all a big mess and it's all individual dates. We need to, again, make sure you click on any of these date headings over here, go up to the Analyze tab on the ribbon, go to the group, and then click on Group Field. You can see how the screen tip that Excel gives us is group numeric or date fields. And now what we do, Excel automatically picks up the starting and the ending date. Okay, so that's good. Don't have to change that. Now we get to choose how we group it. Okay, so what we're going to do in our case, I want to do months and I want to do years. Okay, so I'm going to then click on OK. And now what it's done, it's grouped it, but it still looks quite busy and quite overwhelming. So the next thing I want to show you, another very, very important set of buttons to use when you're dealing with dates in a pivot table. Again, if you go to the Analyze tab on the ribbon, just to the left of where we were, they're a little bit small and you can easily miss them, is this plus and minus sign. So plus will expand, it will make it big, which we already are. We've got a very big pivot table. Minus will collapse the field. So I'm going to click on minus. And what that does is it just collapsed all of the fields. And now we can see a very useful insight into this business, which is Excel Academy and our online workshops. So if we were analyzing this business, what we would notice is that over the years, our progress has steadily got better and better. Okay, then we'd ask ourselves why. Well, what we would tell you is that from about 2018 into 2019, we started to create more structure around our online workshops. We created the Excel Pulse system, and there was an onboarding session, and there was support, and there was deadlines, and there was a whole system and a structure, and that significantly helped us to increase the success and engagement. So that's a useful insight for our business. Okay, and all we've done, we did a few steps. Okay, we inserted the pivot table, we put in the rows, we put in the dates, we grouped the dates, and now we've got quite a useful insight into this particular business. So now we can give ourselves a pat on the back and say we need to keep on doing what we're doing, because having a system and a structure and a start and an end point is very, very useful when it comes to online learning. Cool. Dan, are there any burning questions that people have asked that you want me to deal with, or can we carry on? We've got 25 minutes left. Still quite a few useful things I want to look at.
Yeah, so there's no burning questions. I've been handling the Q&A and the chat. Thanks. And what I'm going to do now is just launch a very quick poll, because we are kind of halfway. So we would like to know from you, are we going too fast, too slow, perfect? It would be great to know, just so that we can recalibrate the pace if needs be. But by the looks of it, 65 to 70% of people are saying it's perfect. A reminder that if we are going a little bit too fast, you can definitely, and you should definitely, watch the recording. What we encourage with Excel and with any skill is we always remind people that it's like riding a bicycle. It comes with time and it comes with practice. The more hours you spend immersing yourself in this, applying what you've learned, the more fluent you will become in this language, the language of Excel, the language of pivot tables. But I can see that 65% of people are saying it is perfect. So Avi, you're doing a fantastic job. Great. And I don't want to keep you waiting. So continue where you left off.
Fantastic. So the next thing I want to look at is just making the pivot table look a little bit prettier. So where would we do that? Again, guys, you need to be in the pivot table. If I'm outside the pivot table, I can't get to the design tab on the ribbon. So I'm going to click in the pivot table. Then I'm going to go up to the design tab on the ribbon. I'm going to click on this more button. Yours might look a little bit different, but it should look in essence more or less the same. Okay. You'll see a whole lot of various styles over here. I'm then going to click on the more button and then going to scroll down. Dan knows I've got some of my personal preference colors in Excel. You obviously, hopefully develop, maybe already have your own personal preference in terms of styles that you like. I'm going to click on brown, pivot style dark 3. I like that. What I could also do is I could also add in banded rows. Okay, so as my pivot table gets a bit bigger, it will have that similar feel to a normal table here, which has banded rows. So those are two design tips I wanted to give you guys, just to really change the style, play around with banded rows, just to make it look a little bit, just a little bit nicer and more presentable. Another useful thing you can do, guys, when you're formatting, you can actually change this row label heading. So you can actually change this to workshops over there. You can change this here if you want to dates, if you want, and that looks a little bit better and a bit more presentable. Okay, I'm just going to then talk about the next thing. Is quite interesting, and I just want to show you an interesting tip that Excel gives us. When you first inserting your pivot table, so if I take a step back, I go into my source data in the data sheet, I go up to the insert tab on the ribbon and I hover. I'm not going to click, I'm going to hover over the pivot table button. You can see the FYI says you can double click a value when you're in the pivot table already to see which detailed values make up the summarized total. That might be quite useful. So let's say you're in the meeting now and you're discussing this and you want to have some more sort of interaction. You want to see, okay, cool. What detail makes up this 89.59%? So basically, we want to just see Excel 202 for 2019. What we can do is we double click on that exact cell over here. We double click, and you can see it's inserted a new sheet with just that data. We're going to auto fit the column widths. And what you'll see is it's just showing me Excel 202 for that particular year, which is 2019. So that's useful to note. Let's say you're in a meeting and you're discussing it, and then someone says, okay, I just want to see that data. Can you send it to me? Can we print it? Whatever it might be. You then double click to drill down, to drill in to that particular piece of information in the pivot table. That's also a very, very useful thing to note when working in pivot tables. Dan.
Aha. Okay, so I love mentioning the screen tips when it comes to Excel and all Microsoft Office applications. So Avi, maybe you want to go to the Insert tab on your ribbon. And then on the far left-hand side, the pivot table button has been grayed out. Why? Because we can't convert a pivot table to a pivot table, so we've already done it. But if you hover your mouse cursor, it may well still, okay, there we go. So if you hover your cursor, there we go. Easily arrange and summarize complex data in pivot tables. Sometimes you just have to wait about a second for that to come up. But what you'll see in the second little paragraph over there, FYI, you can double click a value. Okay, Avi, just hold still there, please. You can double click a value to see which detailed values make up the summarized total. Okay, so there it's actually telling us that. It's telling us the FYI that you can double click a value. So the main reason I wanted to raise this is because just to remember that when it comes to Excel and all other Office applications, hover your mouse cursor over a particular area or button or feature, and it tells you what it does. Sometimes shows you a picture, sometimes shows you what the keyboard shortcut is, and it sometimes gives you an option to click on more, find out more. I don't know if we can find one of those, but sometimes at the bottom it puts like a little question mark and you can actually get more info. There we go, tell me more. Okay, great, fantastic, great. Thank you.
What's worthwhile playing around with as well, I've never actually used this, but I think if you're in the latest version of Excel, you should see this recommended pivot tables button. So if I click on it, you can see that it actually already goes and kind of gives me a couple of proposed pivot tables. Okay, so you can see that it actually is something to look at. We're not going to look at that now, but it's worthwhile playing around with that when you're converting to a pivot table. The next thing I'd like to look at, and when you are building a pivot table, it's nice to have what we call slices. Okay, what they are, people talk about slicing and dicing their data. Now, what a slicer is it's just a visual filter. when people think of dashboards, so when we talk about building dashboards, often that's kind of, you'll see when we put the slicer in now, that's often kind of what you think of when you talk about a dashboard in Excel. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click anywhere in my pivot table. Again, said this, we're going to go up to the Analyze tab on the ribbon. What we're now going to do in the filter group, more or less to the left of the center of this, of the ribbon over here, we're going to click on Insert Slicer. Okay. Now, what we need to make sure to do is you probably wouldn't want to insert a slicer for full name because we've got thousands of names. Okay. So what we're going to do, I'm going to tell you which one we're going to do. We're going to go for, let's say in this case, we'll just do workshop. Okay. So what we do, we're going to click on workshop. And what you'll see is that it inserts a nice little interactive kind of, it's called a slicer. It's kind of like you can press the buttons here. So the nice thing about this is that, again, it's just very interactive. So when you're in a meeting, let's say you're putting this up on the screen and you're discussing as a team, it just gives you the ability to visually see what's going on. So especially, we obviously do go into quite a bit more detail in pivot tables in Excel 202. We'll talk to you about that at a later stage. But when you have multiple pivot tables, you can insert a few, and you've got a few slices, which we look at in Excel 202, then it becomes quite useful to have these visual filters. So what you can see now, I can just click on Excel 202 if I just want to see Excel 202. I can click on Clear Filter. It's the exact same as going to this filter button here and doing that. But I guess it's just a bit more user-friendly. It's a bit more slick. It looks nice. Okay, so it is the same as just clicking on a filter button like I did there, but it's interactive. It looks nice. What I'll show you as well, if you click on the slicer, it's like most things in Excel, you need to click on that object or that item to see the unique tab on the ribbon. So just like earlier, when I click on the pivot table, I've got these two contextual tabs, Analyze or Design. Same too with Slicer. When I click on it, I see the Slicer tab on the ribbon. Okay, so I can click on More. I can change the style over here to green, just so it looks a little bit nicer. Okay, depending on your version of Excel, if you're on a little bit of an older version, you may not have this multi-select, but I can click on multi-select, and that allows me to go there, and in that case, it unticked those two options. So what it's doing now is that it's just unticking something.
Avi.
Yes.
Thanks for talking about slices. I personally think they are really amazing. Great, fantastic ways of easily visually filtering your data. So they really, I find them to be extremely useful because straight away you or the person using your spreadsheet or viewing your spreadsheet can see exactly what is showing and what's not showing. Becomes a little bit difficult to understand and see beneath the surface if you're filtering the traditional way through the filter button, where you actually have to go in. You see that it's been filtered in that little gray square over there next to the word workshops, but you can't visually see easily at a glance what has or hasn't been filtered. So slices are great. They were introduced to Excel a number of years ago in one of the updates to the version of Excel. And on that note, it actually shouldn't matter too much which version of Excel you're on. If you are still on Excel or Office 2007, probably time to upgrade. Your version of Excel is just hit bar mitzvah, and it may well be time to upgrade that so that you benefit from the latest features. Somebody was asking in the chat, what is the difference between Excel 20 or Office 2016 and Office 365? Guys, for those types of questions, versions, differences, versus, go to Google and put in the one versus the other, and you'll get such comprehensive analysis, whether you're comparing versions of Office or Excel or shoes or whatever you're comparing. Go to Google, you'll find comprehensive comparisons. Avi, did you talk about timelines as well in addition to slices?
We're about to talk about that. And that, as far as I know, unfortunately, for the handful of Mac users, I believe that they didn't include that in Excel for Mac. So the next thing, you can see if it's there, maybe they've changed it recently. But because Excel is a Microsoft application, they want to make sure that you don't get too comfortable on a Mac, I think. So what you'll see now, I'm about to show you, if we click again anywhere in the pivot table, we go up to the Analyze tab on the ribbon, you'll notice that just next to Insert Slicer, there is a Insert Timeline. Okay, so this is another type of filter. You can let us know in the Q&A or let us know in the chat if you're on a Mac, if you do see it, but I don't think it's there. I'm going to click on Insert Timeline, and you can see Excel's quite clever and intuitive. It only shows me fields that would actually work in a timeline. So a time or a date. Okay. So it's a timeline, so it needs to be a date or a time. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on a member since. We're going to click on OK. Now what you'll notice is that this is what a timeline slicer looks like, or a timeline filter. I'm going to move this other one to the side. You can obviously, as part of building your dashboard, you can arrange them nicely. I want to show you another useful tip after this in terms of just making it look a little bit slicker. Now, what you can do is you can also choose now how to view this timeline. Months may be too busy with too much going on, but you might want it. So let's say you want to go from July 2018 to December 2018. I can do that. Now I've got a very specific time frame. Okay, and you can see that it obviously then filters the pivot table based on that timeline. I'm going to click on Clear Filter. I'm then going to click on the drop-down arrow over here, and I might just want to see by years. So I'm going to click on years. Okay, and then I can say just 2017 and 2018, or I can see just 2019, 2020. Okay, it's quite useful. A very nice visual way to just filter your pivot table based on any type of date or time if you're dealing with times quite a lot in Excel. I also want to show you again, if I click on this timelines filter or timeline slicer, I go up to the contextual tab. Again, I've got the option of formatting it a little bit differently if I want to. So I've made it orange over there. Okay, I'm going to clear the filter. Another tip that I want to show you, just to make your Excel look a little bit more slick and professional when you're presenting, is to hide the ribbon like I normally do. You can click on that collapse the ribbon, or you can press Control F1. So it's just a little bit less cluttered when you're in a meeting and you're presenting. The next thing you could do, and I often like doing this, if you go up to the View tab on the ribbon, not the review minus the re, so the View tab, and you click on grid lines. Okay, that will hide the grid lines. Okay, it just makes it look a little bit cleaner when you're presenting and when you want to make things a bit more interactive in a meeting. So what we've looked at over the last couple of minutes, we've looked at this slicer, we've looked at a timeline filter. The final thing I want to look at, we've got 10 minutes left, so we're doing quite well. I want to look at a pivot chart. Okay, now that is a useful way to, again, visually represent your data, because when we're looking at this pivot table over here, it's not so obvious that there's a trend over the years that our progress is increasing. You know, people often say that we're visual people. Many people are visual. You want to see. Sometimes we understand better through seeing, visualizing. So what we're going to do, we're going to click anywhere in the pivot table. We're going to go up to the Design tab on the ribbon. Okay. We're going to make sure that we rather go to the Analyze tab, because that's the wrong tab. Okay, so I just took you on a detour over there just to make sure you're still awake. What we're going to do, we're going to now insert a pivot chart. Okay, you can see how we're on the Analyze tab on the ribbon. And we're going to go to the Tools group over here, just second from the right. And what we can do is click on Pivot Chart. What does the screen tip tell us? Insert a pivot chart tied to the data in this pivot table. So it's tied. That's a good word. It's linked to this data. So I'm going to click on the button for pivot chart. You'll see that typically Excel will give you what it believes is the best or the recommended type of chart to use in this case. You can play around and get a preview as to what you think would look better. So I guess in this case, the 3D stacked or the clustered column either would work. Okay, so I'm going to go for clustered column, the one that Excel automatically gave us. I'm going to click on OK. Now what you'll notice is that we can now see what wasn't so obvious and clear when we're looking at the data. So I'm moving my pivot chart to the bottom over here. I'll show you how to move it somewhere else in the next minute. So what you can see, guys, you can see Excel 101, Excel 202, Excel 303, the percentages on the left. If you want, for example, I can click on, I don't want to go into too much detail into formatting this pivot chart. I can click on the percentages here. I can go just like in any formatting in Excel. Okay. It's actually not letting me. I thought it would allow me to change the decimal point. So I don't want to go into too much detail. I mean, Excel 202, we go into quite a bit of detail into formatting and really just making it look exactly the way you want it to look. But for now, this is really just a teaser and a taster in a way, but you can still use this and it's going to be amazing, obviously. So what you can see as I'm saying is we can now already see visually a lot clearer that over the years, the trend is that it's increasing. So you can see from 2016 to 2017 to 2018 to 2019, 2020, you can see that overall there's fantastic growth over our 3 workshops. And we're very proud of that. And we're grateful and we know what we've done and we know what works and we know what doesn't work. What I want to show you now, I'll give you a quick, but I'll point you in the right direction for now. If you click on chart elements, you can play around with different types of titles. Typically, a chart title is quite important, so you can add one in, but I don't want to go into too much detail now. The essence of what we've done is we clicked on the pivot table, went to analyze, insert to the pivot chart, and just straight away, the one that Excel's given us already is quite nice and useful and easy to use. What I want to show you, if you right click on the chart, I'm going to show you 2 things, and then we're gonna end off the session. If we right click, what we can do is we can click on move chart. This is quite useful because at the moment it might be a bit busy, and you could maybe zoom out and maybe put it here if you want. So it's a nice dashboard. What you'll notice, for example, if we go and we select just those 3 years or those 3 years, it's all linked. It's tied, as Excel uses. It's a nice word. And all of these things are all linked now. You might want to leave it, and maybe it's actually better in a way to leave it all on one sheet. But if you right click on the chart, you can click on move chart, and you can basically move it to its own new sheet. So I'm going to click on, so all I did is I right clicked on the chart. I'm going to say move chart. I'm going to say new sheet. And what it's done is it's moved it into its own new sheet. Okay, you'll see that it's quite useful. It's not just a chart, it's a pivot chart. So it's linked to the pivot table. We can filter and unfilter here as we want to or need to. We can say clear filters just by being in the pivot chart. We don't have to go back to the pivot table and clear the filters. We can clear filters over here in the chart. And the final thing I want to talk about is what if you want to now include this chart or any of these objects. The same thing would apply to the pivot table or the timeline, or probably not the timeline or the slicer, but the pivot table or the pivot chart. You might want to put this into a PowerPoint presentation. So I want to quickly end off with this. What I do then is quite simple. Let's say now I'm ready. I like the pivot chart. I'm going to right click. I'm going to say copy. So again, you just kind of click in one of the open white spaces on your chart. Right click, copy. We're going to open up PowerPoint. Dan, can you see my PowerPoint? I have a feeling you won't be able to because I'm only sharing Excel. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop sharing and I'm going to reshare so that you can now see my entire screen. So now you can see my PowerPoint screen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just delete all of this. And what I do now, I'm going to right click. And what you'll see, there's actually a few different paste options. Okay. What I can do is, in essence, I'll explain it this way. You can paste this pivot chart just as a picture. So there's no more interaction. It's not a chart anymore. You can't change anything. It's now fixed. It's static, no longer linked to Excel, no buttons, no changing, nothing. So you can right click and you'll see the last option there is picture. You can do that if you want. Okay. What the first 2 options are is it's going to break the link between Excel and PowerPoint. So the first 2 options, the difference between the first 2 is whether you keep Excel's formatting or PowerPoint formatting. I don't want to get confused you with that. But either of the first 2 options will break the link to Excel, meaning if you change something in Excel, it's not going to filter through into PowerPoint. But option 3 and 4, the difference between 3 and 4, again, is formatting. So either 3 or 4, the main thing you need to know about 3 and 4 is that it will link the data to Excel. So I'll just click on keep source formatting and link. So I've selected option 4. Now what this does, it means that if I go into Excel and I change something, so I've gone into Excel now, I'm going to go and change something in my pivot table. I'm going to just show 2018, 2019, 2020. What you'll notice, guys, when I go back into PowerPoint, it's now changed that pivot chart in PowerPoint. So that's quite important to note. Play around with those different paste options. Hope it wasn't too bamboozling. As I mentioned, the key things to note when pasting from Excel into PowerPoint, you can paste as a picture, which is just a pure picture, no link, nothing. You can paste in a way that it's still a chart, but it's broken from Excel. And you can paste in a way that it's still a chart, but linked to Excel. That's all for now. I'm going to stop sharing. I hope that you've learned a lot. I hope that you've enjoyed it.
Avi,
yes.
Love your work. And I think I speak for everyone. We've covered so much. You are passionate. You are on top of things. You are talented. And I think you've given everybody so many tips, tricks, so much valuable content here. It's been quite a roller coaster. There's been a lot that's covered. I know a lot of people might have been feeling a little bit anxious because they might have missed one or two things. Obviously a reminder, and we've reminded several times and posted the link in the chat. The recording will be available very, very shortly on our YouTube channel. Well, on my personal YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Dan Stillerman. I'm putting a bunch of info here in the chat as well, because we are currently offering 80% off our online courses, and that's valid until 31st of August, which is Monday, this coming Monday night at midnight. You can click there, the link in the chat, and that will take you to the plans and pricing page on our website, which we've just updated. You can also access other free training that we've been doing during lockdown, training people on Excel, on pivot tables, on webinars on how to use Zoom, and you can definitely get in touch with us via our website. Now, once again, we thanked and showed appreciation to ORT for all the fantastic work that they are doing and for the partnership with us during this time in lockdown and before and after. So thought it would be useful to mention that a little bit more about what ORT does. They support small businesses by offering urgent business rescue support, as well as mentoring, training, and networking. This is one of the crash courses or trainings that's available through ORT, and they offer many, many other courses. So it may well be worth your while to get in touch with ORT. And if you would like to make a donation to help ORT in their work in helping small businesses, we're going to post the info into the chat there as well. So you'll be able to see there. And thank you to Laurie, Tracy, and Helene and the team at ORT once again. I see a message in the chat from Laurie, so thank you for that. And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. It is 12 o'clock on the nose here. We'll stick around for another few minutes, but a big thank you to everyone for giving us an hour of your valuable, valuable time. I hope that you've learned a lot. I hope that it's all been really, really relevant and practical and opened your mind to what is possible with pivot tables and pivot charts. And let me see if there was anything else that I wanted to mention and post into the chat. If you do want to make a traditional EFT as opposed to clicking on a link for ORT, you can do that. I've just posted the banking details there. And we actually want to ask you a question in the poll. Are you finding this useful, or did you find this useful? We would love to know what you thought of this. So let's have a look there. Yes, mostly, not sure, or no. Okay, so we'll give that another few seconds. Thank you to everyone who has just voted. We appreciate that. And stick around for another couple of minutes because we've got one or two other things to tell you. Right. So I'm going to end that. And
I'm glad that no one hurt my feelings by saying no.
Yeah, overwhelmingly positive response. We would love to know what else you would like to learn in Excel. So we love helping people. As you can tell, we love offering free training. We've got great courses online, which you can enroll in, get immediate access. You do it online, lockdown friendly, in your slippers, in your pajamas, at home. You don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to go to a physical venue. You just sit and you watch the videos and you interact with us via the videos and the comments underneath the videos, and you do the Excel work in your own time and at your own pace. One thing about a live session is you kind of need to go at the pace of the facilitator, like for example today, but obviously you're getting the benefit of the recording. With our online courses, you can pause, rewind, rewatch, do it 1 hour a day, binge watch 8 hours in a row like your favorite Netflix series. It's really entirely up to you. And you can choose multiple choices here in this poll. In case you haven't realized, you can tick multiple boxes. We've got a whole assortment of results. I'm going to leave that up for another 3 seconds. Get your votes in. Thank you very much. This is very, very helpful. I'll end that and share the results there. So you can see that a lot of people want to know about, want to learn more about formulas and functions, but across the board. So we've got financial modeling, all of the above, 35% of people saying all of the above. So that's really fantastic feedback. Thank you so much.
Right.
And in case you want to make a pledge, you're not ready to donate right now, but you're happy to commit an amount to ORT to help them, to help small businesses, I'm going to launch this. And what you can do is you can just tick one of the boxes and somebody from ORT will get in touch with you in the next day or two for you to honor that pledge. Okay, so we'll get that data. We won't share it with anybody besides for ORT. So we do, and I speak on behalf of ORT. We really appreciate the pledges. I see about 10 people have already pledged committed amounts. So that's really wonderful and generous. It's about 15 people so far. So thank you so much for your generosity. We'll share that information with the team at ORT. I'll leave that up for another about 5 seconds. Avi, you, I'm sure, have been looking at the Q&A as well. I know you were busy and you were in the zone, but if there are any questions there?
Yeah, I think what I will say is thank you to you guys, and I hope you enjoyed. If there are any further questions, Dan posted our email address earlier in the chat. Get in touch with us, especially if it's a unique challenge. I often like finding solutions to unique challenges and problems in Excel. So feel free to email. We're not going to go into any more Excel questions today, but feel free to email us at info@excelacademy.co.za. Okay, feel free. I'm always happy to help and love helping. So feel free to message us. Yeah, massive thank you. You're probably going to, we'll hang around for another couple of minutes, but I think that's it. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it. And we'll hopefully see you again on another crash course soon, hopefully.
Yeah, 100%. I see Raylene has asked about dashboard creation. So essentially we created a pivot table and pivot chart dashboard today, but maybe your question about dashboards, if you do Excel 202, we actually go even more into depth in terms of pivot tables and pivot charts. And we actually create a dashboard where we've got multiple pivot tables and pivot charts on the same screen, and you can slice and dice and see that dashboard changing just as if you're in your car. And you can see your speed, your petrol, your temperature of your engine, your revs, and any other important indicators, key performance indicators or metrics. Okay, let's see if there's any other interesting comments or thoughts. Thank you, Avi, for posting all of that info once again. Thank you, Kaylin. Thank you to everyone for your wonderful feedback. I see Merv loves your guitars, Avi. Merv has woken up at about 5 o'clock in the morning in New York or before 5, and he was drinking coffee to get him up and running, and he's been tuning in loyally to our training over lockdown and before that.
Yeah, and I'll be impressed if people can name some of the albums on my wall there, those vinyls.
For extra bonus points.
Although some of them are a bit blurred out from the sun.
Dishon, thank you for your comment. You were joining us, I think, from Kenya, you said. So great to have you with us today. We appreciate your time and your feedback.
Great.
Okay, Natalie van Wyk was asking about VLOOKUP in the chat section, in the Q&A section. So thanks for your question. I'm not sure if you were asking what is a VLOOKUP or if we do cover VLOOKUP. We do cover it in Excel 202. It's a really, really powerful and useful function in Excel. It sometimes gives people shivers down their spine. It's famous or infamous, but we do cover it and we take you step by step in some of our, in Excel 202. And we may well offer a crash course coming up soon where we do deep dive into VLOOKUP. Okay, a couple of people are asking which bank are those bank details, because the actual name of the bank wasn't in the chat. So Helene, Tracy, or Laurie, if one of you can just confirm which bank, please, that will be very helpful. You can just pop a message in the chat to all panelists and attendees. Okay, and I think we actually forgot to mention, oh, in fact, we did post it. If you want to stay updated, you can join a spam-free WhatsApp group. We hate spam. Some of you might already be part of one of our Excel Academy lockdown WhatsApp groups to stay in the loop and updated. So that link should be in the chat. Post it again here. Great way to stay in the loop. And Helene has confirmed that it is in fact Standard Bank. So thank you for that. I think ORT, you guys should just update your banking details documents so that it clearly states their Standard Bank. But thank you for confirming. Those are the bank details for ORT, and I'll post them again here. It's great to see so much support for the fantastic work that ORT is doing. Okay, so Avi, you're still here?
Yeah, we're here. I think we're going to say goodbye.
Yeah.
Some people, I think, either just can't get enough of it, or they actually don't know how to leave, or they've fallen asleep. Maybe. Hopefully not. All
right. So thank you once again. Thank you, Avi. You've been brilliant as always. Absolute rock star in more ways than one. And thank you once again to ORT. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. The recording is available on our YouTube page, which we posted in the chat, and we'll send out an email later with the link to the recording. You can feel free to share that with friends, colleagues, loved ones, enemies, anyone. And we will see you, and you'll hear from us very, very soon. Until then, take care. Cheers, cheers.